thank you for that opportunity.
Okay, so it looks like we've gone live, or no, not yet. I think Jeff's having trouble with audio. Can you hear us, Jeff?
Put on headphones better or no? Headphones, yes?
Yeah, no, Jeff can hear us, yeah? Okay.
All right, sorry. Okay. These headphones will not actually work with this phone.
Okay, so, don't worry. You were pretty clear anyway, so I think we're okay.
Okay, good.
So good. So you, yeah, I mean, I saw your video at first when you did that submission to the New York City. So I just love the way you talked it, and so you're obviously an extrovert, chirpy and bubbly. So.
Oh yes, big time. Big time. Yeah, it was a really interesting experience because I know you saw the book. It kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't plan to write it. As you know, I'm a medium, and so I talk with spirit. I can connect with spirit. And sometimes mediums do see famous spirits, and I happened to, I was trying to write a different book, and I came across Ben Franklin's schedule. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's really kind of fun. You can see it online, and it's like wake up, address powerful goodness, work, and I just kind of stuck it up on my refrigerator. And then I had a vision of him, like a flash of him. And I thought, oh, that's funny. And I just kind of ignored it and went about my day. And then the next day it happened again. So I'm like, okay, hi, and we just started chatting. And he started saying all this interesting material. And I was like, I need a pen, because what he was saying was very interesting. And I was a lawyer for 20 years. So I'm like, let me just pretend I'm in a deposition and I'll question him. So I just started asking these questions and writing everything down. And 45 minutes later, I had this amazing material. And I thought, well, that would be an interesting book. And I thought, oh, okay, spirit, I'll play. That's the best way I find to work with spirit. Let's just make it fun and make it easy if we can. And so, if I'm supposed to write this book, tell me who I'm supposed to talk to. And I heard back, Abby Hoffman, Frederick Douglass, Farrah, Fawcett, and Andy Warhol. Like, okay. I barely knew anything about Abby Hoffman. I'm not sure if you guys know who he is, but he was a hippie here. He wore the Stars and Stripes, shirt, and he was a social justice activist in the 60s, like before my time. And Frederick Douglass was an abolitionist, and I had heard of him, but I didn't know much about him. And so I thought, let me just see if this works. And then I ended up, 5 days in a row, I set the intention to connect with them and got this amazing material. And that's how it all started. It was pretty crazy. And then when I finished, across my email came this advertisement from Hay House saying, do you want to publish a book? And I thought, well, yeah. And I went and I entered this book proposal, and then I won a book deal with Hay House. It was really.
Well, I think you got a lot of help from the outside, because there's a lot of people who want to be published with Hay House, but they end up spending a lot of money with the with spin-offs from that. So yeah, well done you. I'm just going to link over to Jeff, because he's going to do the introduction to the show first, to the audience that is out there and catching us, and then we'll come back to you. Okay, Susan?
Sure.
All right, Jeff.
Okay, you're on Radio FM 80 in Australia. take them probably more than Florida. Yeah. So it's even been invited on to Julia tonight, today. Social media is what brings them to interesting souls who want to hear this story. So I'm going to pass it on. Obviously, we've got a lot of media experience with our political experience. So I'll pass that back to Julia.
Okay, yes. Sorry, we've had having a bit of sound issues. But Susan, can you welcome to audience that you're watching us? And Susan Lander was just telling us about how she wrote the book. And Susan is a psychic medium and wrote a book called Conversations with History, which got published in 2014. And but before that, Susan, you were in a completely different space, weren't you? I think you start off with the book with the preface saying, "This book almost didn't get written. 4 months before I started writing, I was in a coma, and the doctors didn't know if I would make it. What happened?"
That is true. I had a career as a civil rights attorney working for a labor union in Washington, D.C. And I had gotten sick. It was a very strange thing, but there was toxic mold in an apartment that I lived in. And I got so sick that I became allergic to everything. And I had to stop working. And I ended up catching a lung infection. And I arrived at the hospital. I won't go into gory details, but it was pretty ugly. And I arrived at the hospital in acute respiratory failure. And I remember thinking, is this it? Like, is this it? Am I checking out? And again, I work with spirit, and they said, well, do you want to go? They said, you have 3 minutes to decide. Like,
oh man,
yeah, 3 minutes. What? And because I was about to be wheeled into the emergency room, and I was really kind of out of my head and not, in a lot of pain. But they said, you have 3 minutes. And I thought, oh my God. Okay. And I thought, okay, stay or go. And remember, you have to remember, I had been sick at that point for like 10 years from this mold thing. It broke my immune system. I was allergic to everything and everybody, and my life was not easy. And I thought, oh my God, an end to suffering. That sounds kind of good. But I had these in my heart. I knew I wanted to write a book, and I had family and I had friends, and I knew that I wasn't finished. So I said, fine, I'll stay.
Oh, well,
and that was
so
the last thing I remember.
Wow.
I was like gone. And then I woke up like a week later. It was pretty crazy.
You were gone for a whole week?
I was out for a week. I don't remember anything. And then the doctors kept saying, we don't really know if you're going to stay or not. But I thought, no, I kind of knew I was staying. And then the doctor's like, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. Like they actually said it was a miracle that I survived. But there it is. I had something to do and accomplished. And then 3 months later, the book started. So, they said if I stayed,
if you stayed,
they said if I stayed, there would be a surprise. They said you have 3 minutes, and if you stay, there'll be a surprise. I was really okay.
And do you remember anything from that 1 week when you were in a coma?
I'm sorry, repeat, please.
Do you remember anything from the time that you were actually, the near-death experience or the coma? Do you remember anything from that time, or was it just a big blank?
It's a big blank. It's a complete blank. What I do remember is when I woke up, I had a lot of really interesting revelations, I would say. And I was really scared. But I was, again, talking to my spirit guides and asking, what can I do? What can I do? I don't want to go. And they were giving me affirmations to say and visualizations, like green light on my lungs. And I remember just taking direction from them and saying the affirmations and doing these color visualizations. And also I remember receiving some messages, and I was sitting there on my phone typing them. I had just these visions of, it sounds really a little silly, but I was in this space where I could see the oneness of everybody. It was a really expansive space. And I was taking down a lot of messages and just trying to stay in the moment because anything else was too scary. But I got out and I recovered, and then the book. So it's very different from the attorney business, but it was good.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you, Stanley, and thank you, Lisa. Welcome to our show. So, Susan, you, in the space of those 3 months, you wrote the book. So how did it happen? I know you're a medium, so you were experienced beforehand in terms of talking to spirit and getting guidance. And then you said that we're going to give you a surprise. So what sort of, how did that surprise arrive? Where were you when it happened?
Well, the surprise was Ben Franklin in my kitchen. So basically, I'm sorry, 6 a.m. Can you repeat the question? The surprise was Ben,
Yeah.
I know that, but.
Yeah, so you were just making morning coffee and he just turned up and you just saw him, or sort of did you?
Okay. So thank you. I was looking at Ben's schedule up on my refrigerator, and I turned away and I saw. I don't see full-blown spirits outside myself. I don't want to do that, but I see they're like fields of sparkles, and sometimes they're blue. It's like blue blobs with sparkles. But I see pictures in my mind's eye, and they're like snapshots. It's one of the ways it's really very common for mediums to see. We see, hear, and feel with our psychic senses. We can even taste and things like that. But I saw the blue blob outside myself in sparkles, and I was like, "Oh, hello!" and then I saw the image of Ben Franklin, and then I connected. The way mediums connect is, it's like an energetic thing. It's just really physics. We connect with them through our energy, and they can telepathically communicate with us. Again, through giving us words or phrases or music, or pictures. Those are kind of my more typical. If I try, I'll get a song or a taste. But for me, it's like I see you. It's that clear. It's like a photograph, and I'll hear.
Yeah.
It's like you're talking to me.
Yeah, Jeffrey, you're actually talking to a group of believers. I think Jeff was actually involved in setting up the spiritual church out here. Most of our audience.
Okay.
So I think we're more interested in what those spirits are telling you rather than questioning whether it's real or not. So
yeah.
Benjamin Franklin, I learned about him at school, and I actually was in America when I was 11. So I think we were doing electricity, and there's that story about the kite and the key and the lightning and the storm. So, and, a scientist and, part of the Independence Declaration and the Founding Fathers. So I was actually quite surprised to sort of, when you did actually ask him what message it was that you wanted to share, that he just said, you know, always believe in yourself, love life, do what you came here to do, and then go home.
Right. It was funny. He had that edge to him. The thing that I liked about him is he just felt, and we mediums also feel, right? So, Jeff, if you set up a spiritualist church, you'll know that. So he just had this feeling like he was about to make a joke. Like the whole time, he was very just expressive. But I loved his message. And he also was talking about technology. And even though with everything going on, we can tend to feel powerless, but we've really never been so powerful. I mean, look at what we're doing. This is unbelievable. You're like, oh, here's this video. Let me reach out to this person in the US. And then here we are. That's what he's talking about.
Right. So here's one of 22. Was he first ever rank, wasn't he?
I think, Julie, you might have to translate. I can't hear really from Jeff. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Jeff is saying he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, 22 characters, and he was the first one, was he?
He was first. Yeah, he was first. And when I was doing this book, I had this very strong feeling that he was a driving force behind this project. It was just project for them. So he was first, and then Andy Warhol said that he was actually the patron saint of it. He's, you know, he's just funny, and that's how he communicates. Like, oh, I know it's Ben Franklin's, but I'm the patron saint. Like, okay, but yeah, Ben. I've always felt a kinship with him. I'm from Philadelphia too, originally. So we're all kind of, Philadelphians are pretty much Ben Franklin geeks, I would say, a lot of us. I grew up going to his Ben Franklin court where he lives. So there's that connection. And again, spirits are kind of like that too. Sometimes it's easier to connect with certain spirits than others. But I felt like I had a natural connection.
Yeah, but you had quite an international cast, didn't you? You had had a Greek poet, and a voodoo priestess, and Gandhi, and then the German wartime photographer who photographed Hitler, and then the 16th century French seer who foresaw that Hitler Nostradamus. No, I think Nostradamus he must have been like really interesting.
He was really interesting. Oh my gosh. Okay, so what is super interesting about Nostradamus, if I can find him through my tags here, let me see. He said something that I didn't really even notice till this time.
Yeah, while you're looking for it, I'll just...
He was talking, okay, so he was foreseeing, I asked him, right, Nostradamus, I asked him about what does he see for the United States? But I think it doesn't just apply to the United States. In looking at this picture now, looking at this book now, he said it's going to be a great social change, prosperity, abundance, an age of Aquarius, a reaffirmation of faith, although not in a religious sense. One warning: do not move backward in time. Guns and knives are the old way. Make a choice. And the concentration of resources with the affluence and a lack of clear priorities have led to a dichotomy in your society. And then he said, until there's equal distribution of resources, there'll continue to be poverty and misery and all this. But I thought it was really interesting because the age of Aquarius is, according to astrologers at this point, December 21st this year. So I thought that was really interesting, now to read. And I also feel like, also with what's going on here with the Supreme Court and this just moved, I'm very political, but has moved back to the right. And I do feel like we're going backwards, and that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, we're obviously just watching what media is showing us, but, you know, the storming of the Parliament House in Michigan, you know, with people taking it over with guns, it's just like we're all goggle-eyed going, oh my gosh.
It's crazy.
Isn't it?
It's completely crazy and really, really terrifying. Yeah.
Mm. I mean, the world's gone through a different time, which was terrifying as well. And Nostradamus was a French seer and astrologer who, some say, predicted Hitler's rise 400 years before it happened. And in the interview, it's interesting, you know, you say he came to you wearing a 15th century blue velvet cloak, gold trimmed light-colored hose, and a mustache. But I looked at actually the Nostradamus prediction about, you know, that people say related to Hitler, and it just sounded so real. He wrote, with the hunger of wild beasts they will cross the rivers. Most of the country will be against Hitler, but the great man will find himself paraded inside of a cage of iron. The German child of the Rhine will see nothing. And he predicted about dying. But when you talked about him, you know, because it's so apocalyptical, you talked about him. You talked to him about why he channeled, because he was very busy, wasn't he? He was a doctor, a physician in a time when they were still using leeches, and
Yes.
he was also an astrologer, and he was also consulting the king. So, you know, the poems or the lines, they just came to him, did they?
Yeah, they did, actually, and his whole life. He definitely. They're different psychic gifts, and he clearly had the psychic gift of prophecy, and you know, he gave it its space, and fortunately for us, recorded it. But I think that's what it's kind of like with psychic abilities. I feel like pretty much most or everybody has some. It depends whether we give it free reign. Some people don't want to, and that's totally, you know, fine. Or other people develop it. You know, for him, it's like he gave it free reign, and just, especially by writing it down all the time, he just let it flow. And I think that's just really, that's the lesson from him. And we're still reading his material all these hundreds of years later. Powerful.
What about you? Did you always have these psychic abilities, or did they come in only after a certain point or a certain process?
That is such a great question. I look back at my childhood, and I was playing games with my guides when I was young. And this is how it would go. I can't find this. Where is it? And I would just get really quiet, and then a picture would come in my mind, and I'd go find it. But I didn't understand what I was doing at the time. You know, I was actually using psychic abilities, but I didn't actively start to explore them until maybe when I was 40. And I started getting interested in, you know, tarot cards and astrology and numerology, and started studying it. And then I found out I had an aptitude for it. And so I've been working with it, taking classes. And I think Jeff can appreciate this. All of my teachers, all of them have been from the spiritualist tradition. Every single one. It's quite interesting. So.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I mean, I think I only met someone who could see pictures in their head when I was out here in Australia. And I think I was in my 40s, and I didn't even know it was possible. Then I'd go off to meditations. I'd be the last person to see something after half an hour of work. But you know, that's a real gift that you have. Jeff, what are you saying?
It's an easy technique.
It's an easy technique.
Yeah. You just ask to see the color red. You can't see the color red. Just look for a red fire engine or a red post office box. And all of a sudden, you know, your collective memory will bring it to the forefront of your mind. You can go through all the different color spectrums, either looking for the color or look for an object that is of that color. Yeah. So once you start that connection, you'll open up that part of your mind. Yeah. some people actually close their eyes, but I've found that as we talk now, you can sense it right in front of you. You can actually sense something into your energy field. I mean, animals do that. They have that ability to sense to that extent as well, you know.
I'm glad you can. It's like I do this. I have to concentrate.
So,
Okay.
Jeff, you teach in the development circle. That's how you.
Well, actually, Julie used the wrong phrase there. We actually set up the Community Centre for Personal Growth. So it was all about running classes on all different faculties. It was really like some of those schools that you find in Sonnenberg up in Sweden and Finland up in Scotland and Arthur Findlay College. So that was really essentially that. And then one of the ladies came and said, "Oh, can we use Sunday night to run a spiritual church?" And I said, "Well, that's fine." I mean, people are coming through the door either educationally or they're coming for spiritual art, or they're coming for Farrah Christ, or they're coming for yoga or Tai Chi. So there's really different aspects of actually for human development. So, I mean, Julie will tell you that when you're shifting your energy through Qigong, you know, you start to raise your vibration. And of course, raising your vibration is the key. So I was listening to you intently, and I thought it rather strange that you used the word fear with regards to what's going on in America. And I think the strongest person out there is the one who doesn't engage into that mentality or that vortex of energy. Your job really is to hold still and raise that vibration. So all those people you come in contact with in thought, word, and deed, it reflects on them as well. So they don't get drawn into that skullduggery, you know, the energetic vampiring characteristics that are being portrayed by the media, really.
Yeah, it's wow. That's so Edgar Casey came. That's interesting. Yeah, he has the most interesting writings. But yeah, it's a journey to remain above that layer of fear, and it's interesting. It was actually my birthday on Monday, and I live with my mom here in Florida. You know, people have all kinds of interesting arrangements, but I live with my mom here, and I said, we were. I guess she mentioned something political. I said, nope, not today. We're not going there, because it is so easy to get sucked into that. But I do have faith, and if this work has taught me anything, it's that we're all souls. Souls are eternal. This is the story of the moment. But I also realize that we need Earth to be here and learn. You know, we cannot destroy it. So I guess it's that balance. You know, the human versus spiritual self, the soul self versus the human brain, and the need for safety.
Yeah, and that's why it's great. Sorry, Jeff. Yeah, that's why it's great that you're, communicating about it and channeling, because the people that or the souls that you're connecting to have inspired us, and we can relate to, and I guess we're slightly less sort of respectful or in awe of them than say angels or ascended masters that normally get channeled. I love the fact that you talked to Farrah Fawcett. I mean, I grew up with the 80s and watching American TV, and she was just so. She and Patrick Swayze, they're just so alive and enjoying it. And, one of the quotes that you have from her is that she's saying Earth is a very tough place. She'd like to use it. You said that she'd like to actually, the fact that she was able to act about domestic violence and bring that to people's consciousness. And she's saying so many difficult problems and so much pain. We can all relate to that. But can't you see, this gives us so much opportunity to act and to be one of the people who actually make change. So,
Susan, are you typing? Because I can hear the typing coming through. So it's going
yeah, I don't know who's typing. Yeah. But
Yeah.
you interviewed quite a few people who were who did stand up and say in the middle of turmoil, and exploitation of other souls, and said no.
Yeah. And I think that's, well, it's one of the reasons that these folks are famous, I guess, because, they followed their passion and they acted. They acted in the moment, when it was important. But I agree with you. I thought it was interesting with Farrah. Oh my gosh, her energy is so beautiful. It still is. And I think I mentioned in the book, there were some spirits, they would come and we would, do the interview, and they would go pretty much. They didn't hang around. They shouldn't. And that's not the way, mediums need to live on Earth, and kind of a normal life. But Farrah, I did not want her to go. I remember she's just sunny. I can't explain it any other way. And I loved her energy. But it made me kind of sad too, because she really did she had a hard life in a way. And, like you said, when I had asked her, what was her purpose here? What was her plan? I know that's something you do, like the life between life planning. She said it's to make people aware of domestic violence and, difficult relationships. It's really interesting. And you think Farrah Fawcett, she's a star, but no, her job was to actually do something different. And the stardom was a vehicle to allow her to fulfill her life path, which she did. And that's why we still know her. Interesting. Yeah.
Well, like Farrah, sorry, Jeff.
I think every hairdresser had to produce her style of hair, didn't it? It was her fashion statement.
Right. She had that hair. She's beautiful. Yeah, she was just beautiful.
Just as Farrah was the heartthrob for the boys, I think Patrick Swayze that you interviewed is the heartthrob for the girls. So what he actually quite recently. I haven't actually read that chapter yet. Can you tell us what was he like?
Oh, I loved him. It's funny because people ask, do you still talk to them? And I don't really. I guess I could try to call them. I think they would come and say hello, but they have their lives and their business, but Patrick Swayze is the one that still shows up in my life and says hello. He was really fun to talk to. He is charismatic, but in a really nice way. He's like the charming boy next door. And he was so in love with his wife, and he's still in love with her. And he has this quote, and he's like, heaven, he talks about his life on the other side. And he said, heaven is wonderful. He called it heaven, but he said it's wonderful. And, but basically that he's waiting for her, that he'll never be 100% happy until she's with him. And he hopes that she's here till she's, that she lives a full life. But until then, he'll wait. He just misses her. It's interesting. And he said it's like the movie in Ghost that he was in. You take the love with you when you go there. And I think that's the truest thing about mediumship. That's the reason spirits come back to talk with you, famous or not, because they love you and there's still that connection.
I just want to say something. You mentioned when you had your, what would you call it, your near-death experience.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that was the U-turn. That was a turning point in your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I thought that when I got sick from the mold, that was the turning point. And it was a big turning point. But the big turning point was, am I going to stay or am I going to go? Oh, I'm staying. Well, you know what? I better get to it because I'm here for a reason. And it was kind of like that. Yeah. I just made the decision.
Yeah. So when that, just want to get the chronological order here.
Mhm.
When you're doing your legal stuff in your fraternity, being a lawyer,
Yes.
this particular experience then put that legal fraternity to one side, and then you made this journey where you're currently talking to us today. Is that the principle of the near-death experience?
When I got sick, I could no longer do that job. So it's that saying that when one door opens, another closes, another one opens. I was knocked out of that job. I mean, I tried to hang on to it because I'm pretty tenacious that way, but it was gone. I couldn't do it anymore. I was too sick. And then I spent years just kind of trying to figure out what my life was supposed to be. But at that point, I'd become interested in the psychic world, and it started reading a lot about the psychic world, reading about the other side. I started to go to some groups. And then I started to lead some groups, psychic development groups. So it's kind of this like, okay, you're done. Life just said, you're done that other job. You can't do it anymore. What are you going to do now? And I was like, but I'm Susan, the Washington Union lawyer. That's my job. And it's like, no, you aren't anymore. What are you going to do? So it's like, they just literally within 2 weeks, I couldn't do it anymore. It was very jarring. Yeah. So, but it worked out.
So now you're the equivalent of Union Street Station, and all these souls have passed over, are coming through Transit Center, and you're the one that they talk to. Yeah.
Oh, with the famous folks?
Yeah, well, just use an analogy of Union Street Station, where everybody gets on the train and off they go on their different platforms. So these people have all made the move and gone on the other side, and now they're coming back on the platform and they're talking to you.
Well, they could talk to me or to any other medium. But what I'm doing now, okay, so my job is really to be a catalyst for change. It's my specific job. So, but my dream is really to do more with mass media. I mean, the book was, I guess, the first step, but I didn't know at the time. But I've been working on some screenplays with a screenwriter that they're mind, body, spirit subjects, and with the hope of awakening consciousness. But the first one is actually a TV series based on this book. So it would, hopefully awaken the consciousness of people to the awareness that there is more than what we see on Earth. So basically, I developed that screenplay with a screenwriter, and then we just finished another one that's a supernatural romance. And then we are just starting a new one actually this week. So when I first started doing this, I was more like a traditional medium in that everybody's like, oh, you're a medium, you should do readings and that kind of thing. And I mean, I did that, and I can do that. But the dream is to really develop these programs, and that's that's what I want to work toward. But I'm still practicing mediumship. I sit in a development circle every week because practicing. There's a reason people are called practicing mediums, because you got to practice all the time. It's like a muscle, right? I mean, Jeff knows this. You can't just kind of not do it, because you have to just keep that flowing, keep working with it.
I take it
So
you ask for a car park every time you get in the car?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I take it every time you get in the car, you ask for a car park?
Oh, pretty much, yeah. Right.
You're practicing all the time asking for a car park.
Well, hey, spirit guides can be helpful for all kinds of things. I remember I had a friend that would say, "There's abundance in this universe, and there's abundance in the form of a parking space for me," right? And she had this parking angel hanging in her car. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, one of our listeners, Lisa Water, Stanley Wang's just said she's bought Susan's book called Kindle and she can't wait to read it. So thank you, Stanley, for your support. It really is interesting.
Thank you, Lisa. I've been looking and I've been watching people come through. That's so nice. It's really nice to see you. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. Yeah, this is so fun. I'm so glad you reached out.
Take it to another conversation here. One, because it's modern, is you mentioned Steve Jobs, and I think for a lot of people on this planet, the technological advances that were put into our global lifestyle. What did he have to say?
Oh, he was really interesting. He was the only person, spirit, that I was intimidated by. It's funny.
That you were intimidated or were not intimidated by?
I was.
You were intimidated by what? Because he's so intelligent, cerebral.
He really is. Like, his spirit was really fierce.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, but I was like, oh my God. It was kind of like, I guess I would say I was intimidated by Einstein, because I know, like, physics was not my thing, and he was trying to talk about physics concepts, but and being able to like transcend time, and like, really, okay. But Steve Jobs was he had this fierce intelligence, and he loved innovation so much. He's just I don't know, he's next level. I don't know how else to describe him, but where's I have my favorite tag here. Okay, let's see. Okay, so what his message was really, this is cool. Well, for one, never live for other people and their expectations, for that can never make you happy. He said, you are your most important person, your VIP. And then he starts talking about what I'll just call manifestation. A lot of these folks, they didn't say, I did manifestation, but he'll say, picture the best future you can imagine, set that vision into place, and then go for it. Do not be deterred. In the world you live in, there is unlimited abundance and potential for you to have success. If you can dream it, you can be it, and you can have it. Don't give up on your dream. So he's saying, and somewhere else in here he said, I let creativity have its freedom and didn't limit it, and it grew and grew. He's basically saying it's manifestation. In here he said he asked the questions. What would he want? Oh, I'd like a computer that fits in my pocket. He talks about it in here. And of course, now the computer that fits in your pocket, that's how we're connecting through my iPhone. I mean, he literally changed the lives and trajectory of humanity because he wanted a computer that fit in his pocket, right? So,
yeah, and actually, I think that's what you mentioned about Nostradamus, because he said he deplored the fact that when he was a doctor in the 16th century and, he saw himself more as a healer, but, in those days, he was saying, each time they would have to sort of learn for themselves and start from scratch. Whereas now we have information at the tip of our fingers. so we don't have to, sort of reinvent the wheel. So humanity actually has all that information to serve us. And he was really enjoying, what Steve Jobs obviously helped implement. So I can see why they're on a team.
Yeah, that is so true, Julia. There were different themes that emerged. There were like the social justice people, and environmental, and the innovators, that kind of the great thinkers, and but yeah, every piece. When I started writing this, well, when they started writing it, I was just the secretary, but I all of a sudden realized that each piece had a message. And that was the point. But they don't like knock you over the head with it. It's subtle, and they're short pieces, and you can kind of read one at a time. And but I found it pretty enjoyable. This was my favorite Steve Jobs quote, Jeff. Even though, like I said, I was a little intimidated by Steve Jobs, I got the feeling he really enjoyed the conversation. And I said, I got the feeling you really enjoyed this conversation. Because the book, by the way, is an interview format. And he said, immensely, I'm participating in a new kind of communication across the dimensions. There's nothing better than that. Maybe I can build a computer or device to help that along. He's like, just kidding. On the other hand, and then I could sense this shift, like, wow, maybe there is some device that can have people on Earth talk to spirits. And he's like, he's like, just kidding. On the other hand, maybe there's a way. I'll have to think about it. But he meant it. It was really crazy. I was like, that's why he was Steve Jobs, because only he would. I could spend an entire book never thinking maybe there's a machine that could do this, and he's like, maybe there's a machine that could help with that. But pretty crazy. Anyway, so that was.
I was picking that up. I was actually feeling that myself, and then I was thinking, well, you're acting as a vehicle for that, but so too was Nostradamus with his scrying. So these are all elemental forms of communication, including the tin can with a piece of string.
Right. And it's interesting with the I guess, quote unquote, famous spirits. I mean, on the other side, they're just spirits. And they say it like this: we're just regular souls, just like you. But we have the gift of the bully pulpit. People knew us, so they're going to tend, rightly or wrongly, people are going to take notice when we say something. So we're going to take advantage of the opportunity to just say something. And from the perspective of the other side, where you have a higher perspective, you're not caught in that earth stuff, like Jeff was saying, all the fear down here. You can just see, you have a bird's eye view, and you can see more clearly.
Oh, that's why I love the book, because we grow up in collective groupthink, and we sort of download and absorb so much sort of groupthink that we confuse it with our own thought. So just reading sort of some of the philosophers, or the civil rights spot, the deep thinkers, the Einstein, who could think for themselves, and who we know now sort of are still interested in what's going on this plane, and can not just sort of see the physical, but all the energetic stuff that's going on. I find it really interesting, and thank you for providing us that opportunity to get their insights just by downloading a book from Kindle for not very much money. It really helps if you want to shift your life and your thinking, and you sort of like the people, the celebrities and the philosophers and the thinkers and the inventors who've been featured in here, get this book. So you're welcome. One of the people that I featured in terms of, like Steve Jobs, but probably gave us the car, was Henry Ford, and he's still inspiring a lot of people with his methods. How did he come across to you?
I remember I think I said kind of barked at me. He was, yeah, I mean, he actually had a lot to say. But again, let me pull up, see if I stuck any tags in here. I marked this thing up. Okay. Oh gosh. I had underlined this passage. It's so funny. You talked about the cars, and the one passage I have from him is he's talking about the other side. And but here it's like, I guess I'll just say one thing. It's like Steve Jobs. He saw a need and he filled it. And and he was right. And of course, his lesson that he came here to work on was to develop and invent technology and move technology forward for the betterment of humanity. I really wanted to help people and make their lives better, and I think I did that. And when I got to the other side and looked back at my life, I was satisfied. It wasn't perfect. I had much room for improvement. I wish I had more balance in my life and made more time for my family. Maybe better luck with that next time. But he was talking about life on the other side. Not that many of them did that, but occasionally they did. And he said he has a job on the other side. And his job is to work with people who have just gone back there from Earth and to get them reacclimated to being there. It's like he's a tour guide. It's fun for me, he said, to see their eyes light up as they reimagine and remember the possibilities of being limitless beings. All of that potential. It's easy to forget that when you're in the confines of an Earth body. But it's truly paradise on the other side. It is where hate ends and possibilities begin. I love it.
Yeah, take the box on that one.
Mm-hmm. There was like, in this book, when they would say things like that, I'd be like, oh my God. Like I'd be just channeling it, writing, and I'd go, oh my God. And they say these incredible things. And they still blow me away. Like, just blow me away. So, again. So
just an interesting point you brought up there. I just want to explore it.
Mm-hmm.
Have any of them actually said what actually happened when they passed over? Just like in the movie Ghost, how Patrick Swayze is there and the light turns up and he says, I've got to go. He feels that pull. Have they actually come to explain what actually happened when they made that transition from this physical mortal body and went across into that ethereal realm, that other dimension? Have they actually explained who was there and how they got taken around as a tour guide and showed where they're going to be hanging out? Has anybody actually come through to tell you that?
They didn't. They didn't talk about the transition process.
Do they go and eat again and eat food like they normally do here and go and sleep and have a shower and all that stuff like we have done physically here? I mean,
there's actually I've just got the page open, Jeff, here with FD Frederick Douglass. So Susan asked, "What is your typical day like? Are you working on any projects?" And remember, Frederick Douglass was a slave originally, and then he advised Abraham Lincoln on abolition and fought for that. So he says, "I enjoy my friends and family here. I'm in the Peace Group, along with Abby Hoffman and others who are collaborating on this project. I enjoy creating. I'm an artist at heart, and I like painting, drawing, and use of color. It relaxes me. Also, I like to tell stories with my art." And then she asked him, "Are you planning to come back to Earth?" "Not anytime soon. It's a bit too much of a cruel world right now, and I don't want to engage with that. I can do more good up here."
That is a super interesting point. I thought that it never again occurred to me before I wrote this, that they're over there helping us and imparting information down here through us, inspiring us. But yeah, from what I understand, spirits can and do interact with their loved ones on the other side, and they do kind of, come visit us and keep an eye on us as well. Some can serve as guides as well, guides for us and help us on our path when we're here to get inspire us. Um, as I understand it, you can just think where you want to be and you can be there, and you can create homes to live in. And Sylvia Brown actually writes about a lot about life on the other side. I loved her books when I first started. She was my introduction. I loved her.
Well, we love Robin Williams, and we're running out of time. So can you? And I know you did not include Robin Williams in the book. I don't know why.
Because he didn't pass until after.
Okay.
But yes, he came in. I was having lunch with a friend of mine who's a medium. That's good fun. Two mediums having lunch. That's asking for it. And we just started talking about Robin Williams, and there he was. And actually, my friend Glenn channeled a lot of it, and then I was picking up on it and channeling too, and wrote it. And part of that interview is on the Hay House site on healyourlife.com. If you type in Susan Lander, you'll see there's some pieces I have in there, including pieces of the Robin Williams interview. One of the things I'll actually read to you that really touched my heart. People ask about the suicide, right? And he said, "The way I passed is irrelevant. I lived and laughed and cried a lot too." He said, like the Parent Trap, I got caught up in the illusion trap, in the story. But that's so often the case when you're human. A pill doesn't fix things, the heart does. Like Bounty, the quicker picker-upper. Feel good about your life. Say, I am blessed because you are. I had many wonderful years, so you can't say my life was a suicide. And that's where I leave the conversation. I made people laugh. I loved the people in my life and had rich, full relationships with them. That was not a suicide. I left the earth instead with love. Chills. Yeah. That was Robin. So yes, you can see more on the Hay House Heal Your Life site if you'd like to read more of the interview. And there's some other interviews that I did in there. And there's celebrities' top tips. There's some, quotes out of there. Celebrities' top tips for, for helping you along on your life here. So, but
that's such a good resource. We can, especially if you're working in a field that you need some advice from a professional. You can reach out. It doesn't matter whether you're an artist or an actor or a civil rights worker or a legal professional or a philosopher or a doctor. You could, there's always, that's a really good resource to provide, Susan.
Yeah. So feel free to check that out. And also, if you don't mind, I have a Facebook page, and it would be it said Susan Lander Author. Facebook.com at Susan Lander / Susan Lander Author. Thank you. Perfect. And I'd love it if you come by, like my page, post up a lot of good stuff. And also I have Twitter at Susan B. Lander. And I also want to make a note that weirdly, this is so weird. I happen to just be on my Facebook and saw Hay House is doing a writer's workshop, their first global writer's workshop this coming weekend. It's virtual, and 20 countries are participating, and they are offering actually as contest winners. Like I won a contest that allowed me to publish this book. They're doing a UK contract, an Australia contract, and a US contract. So the way these conferences work is you actually participate for the weekend, and then you can put in a book proposal, and then out of that they choose, and you get a book deal. And it was a $10,000 advance. It's amazing. I mean, people win. They win every year. So if anybody is interested, I just thought it was so weird that this week is like, oh, the director of Hay House Australia happened to do this video. I thought, oh, that's funny because I'm doing the interview, and just so happens there's an Australia contract. So if anyone's watching that wants to write a book, that wants a shot, and even if you don't, the value of these writers' workshops are you learn how to do a book proposal, you learn about the publishing industry, and by the time you're done, if you put the time in and do the proposal, you can pitch it. Even if you don't win with Hay House, you have the document ready to pitch other agents, places, publishers. Of course, you can self-publish these days. It's easy, pretty easy, and lots of opportunities now to get your message out. And that's, I think, what it's all about now, to just raise the consciousness and awaken humanity. We need all of you. We need the light workers.
I've got two fellows that I would like you to talk about. First one is Mr. Walt Disney. And because what I grasp from all these 22 people, even though we haven't got to them all, is the power of imagination, which is what Einstein talked about. So Walt Disney had a dream as well, whether it's Disneyland, Disney World, and revealing the old story that you can actually communicate with animals as a very potent communication link. What did Walt Disney have to say when it came through?
I'm sorry, Jeff, I'm having a hard time hearing. You were saying communicate with animals?
Well, Walt Disney, his whole philosophy was about bringing the cartoons to life, and the component to that was the connection with how animals communicated with each other, and also how they communicated with humans, when that wasn't really a desired thing here in the Western world, communicating with them.
That is interesting. Again, I'm just kind of having a hard time hearing, but
I mean, we just saw animals as food stock,
Mm-hmm.
We just
so Jeff's saying that Walt Disney changed the way that we view animals, because obviously in the animation of this, the animals were often spirit guides, or they were there when the kids were lonely, and Bambi, everybody remembers Bambi. So that's what the impression that Jeff is getting in terms. But he's interested to hear what your impression was with Walt and what he wanted to communicate as part of this team that worked with you.
Thank you. That is so interesting. That the concept that Disney animals are guides, it's 100% correct. But I really love that, drawing the connection between point A and point B there. It's right, of course. And I love Disney, and I fortunately live only 3 hours from Disney World. Yes. But this is hilarious. Here's my Disney cup, because I am a Disney geek. But yes, Disney was all about the magic, and he talked about how he really developed it for his children. And let's see, I said, what inspired you to build Disneyland and Disney World? He said, my children, and it grew from there. And let's see. He was interesting. He felt like he had the wonder of a child. I mean, he was definitely a grown-up, but he felt like the impression. And again, as a medium, and again, Jeff as a doing that work, the feeling is important. And he felt like in him was this little boy. but he certainly had the ability to manifest. And this is what I loved about him. And again, it's one of these things I just suddenly realized when I read it this time. He said, people give me lots of credit for being a pioneer, but the truth is we all have huge potential. We can all be pioneers. If you choose not to do something, the only one standing in your way is you. And he said, I'm not saying everyone comes to Earth to build a huge corporation. Some do and some don't. But I'm saying find what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and do it. That is the key to great success. That is where your power lies. Once you're working in your sweet spot, doing what you love, there's no better feeling. And he said, I believe that most of us want to make our mark on the world. I'm here to say you can do that. Believe you can, know you can, set your sights and your goals and go to it. No one else will do it for you. In this way, you can make great change. And I said, what about smaller change? Right? Right?
Small
Okay,
change.
what about smaller change? So then he proceeds to tell me the starfish story. Do you know the
Right.
starfish
What's
story?
that? No.
Okay. So he says the little boy's walking on the beach and there's all these starfish. The tide has stranded all these starfish on the beach and they're all dying, right? So he starts picking them up one by one and throwing them in the water. And a grown-up asks him, what does that matter? You can't save them all. And he puts one more back in the water and said, it matters to this one. And the point that he was making was, you see, everything positive you do, everything good you do, affects hundreds of thousands of people down the line. Don't underestimate what you can do. You can be a change agent in that way. You just never know. You literally never know how your life, what you say, what you do, will affect the future in a positive way. That's his message. But I love the animal spirit guides. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thanks for sharing that story, because I know I spent about like 1.5 hours once with my girls. So here in Australia, we often have very dry periods and then we have a lot of water where it rains suddenly, and dams that are in the farms, not like built dams, but just like ponds, overflow. And I think we'd driven across, and there were all these little fish that had been living in the dam, but because of the rain, they'd been washed onto the road. So we got out and we picked up these little fish that were that size, minnows or something. We were putting them back in the lake for about 1.5 hours. So
Well, yeah. There you go. That's amazing. I love that.
So, do these guys ever talk about being in toxic relationships and how to extrapolate themselves out of toxic relationships to keep living their dream?
That would be the Farrah Fawcett. You know, Farrah talked about that.
Because I was actually feeling we're going to direct our conversation towards Gandhi, because Gandhi, he had a major issue there with the British in India, and he was using peaceful methods to accomplish his requirements. And of course, they have the untouchable caste. So to actually bring them on board through peaceful measures has been probably a legacy he's left in India since his departure, isn't it?
For Gandhi?
Yeah. I mean, he was really in a relationship. I mean, he had a caste system and he had the British.
Well, Gandhi talked about, Gandhi, he talked a lot, actually. I should go back and read it. I mean, he kind of was rapid fire talking. And he talked, we actually had to do a lot of cutting down, or it would have been like a lot of the book. But, I just opened to it. Okay, then. he talked about, how, yeah, you know, okay. He talked about choice. There must be choices made. What has to be changed is solving conflict through diplomacy. He talked about war as destroying both the invaders and the invaded. He talked about, you know, I guess, I mean, I'm hearing what you're saying, and my impression, he talked about war and how war really is hitting brother against brother and how we're all related. On the other side, again, I'm really hearing what you're saying. He's talking about how we're all brothers and sisters. From his perspective, he sees that. And love, he said, love is everything. Love is all there is. And how important it is to go to your next level of personal evolution. Grow and learn, transcend what you think your limits are. And I think my favorite quote in the book was this. It's about divinity. He says, sometimes it's easier to see the divinity in others, but know that you can only do that because you're divine too.
Got it. Understand.
I really love that. And I think, to your question, I think he has just definitely a higher perspective now. And just, he said, power is not the end, but the means for great social change and the evolution and advancement of mankind. And that's what he's talking about. I asked him, does he have advice to offer to our leaders? He said, please work together and change the world. Do you realize you have the individual ability to directly improve the lives of everybody on the planet? This is a huge golden gift, a spectacular opportunity of immense value. This is what you came here to do. Don't waste it. And power is not the end, but the means for social change. So but that divinity quote, that was really amazing to me. You can only recognize divinity because you are. They're like, oh, they're so holy. Well, you know what? You get what that is.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hey, I just want to wind up, but I was just feeling Louis Armstrong. So I feel his presence. So I mean, he was a guy who was, you know, a fellow born in America where social change, the segregation, and then music built bridges. What did Louis Armstrong have to say?
Oh, I loved him. Oh, I loved Louis. Oh my gosh. I also love New Orleans. I have a thing for New Orleans. I've been there a bunch of times. Well, of course, he talked about music. He had a very rough childhood. He ended up, I forget what they call it. No, hold on. He was born into extreme poverty, and he sang when he was young, and then he landed in what was then called a colored waif's home. Wow. As a juvenile delinquent, but there they had a band, and he learned to play the cornet. And, you know, music was everything to him. He talked just a lot about music. My niece is a musician, so she asks some music questions, but one of my favorite quotes is, it doesn't matter what others say because people will always have something to say. I know it's not very musical, but it's true. And it's one thing that stops people from exploring their spirituality and maybe their psychic gifts too, because they're afraid of what other people are going to say and react. But he actually addresses that. It doesn't matter what others say, because people will always have something to say. And he said, when you, let's see, I asked about his childhood, and I said, you want to talk about it? And he said, not really. It's ancient history. Long gone. I prefer to be happy. I choose to be happy. When I think of my lifetime, it's all about my music. It's what people remember and what I remember, and it lives on and stays with me, even though I left Earth and I'm speaking to you from the other side. The hard lessons from Earth, such as ill health, tough families, and even poverty, don't follow you to the other side. You may remember them, but what you remember are the good things you created. Your success, your accomplishments, they speak to who you are. You aren't your circumstances, your family, your fights, your aches or pains. Sometimes things seem dark, but these times are transitory. They can't follow you to the other side. When you look back at your life from the other side, it's all about what you did, what you learned, and when you got things right. That's what sticks with you. Just be you, be happy. It's a choice. Don't listen to anyone else's criticism of your music or art. God is in you. Find it and express it. You'll know it when you're in that place making that special music. That was the secret to my success, and it can be yours too. So your uniqueness, his big message, and this is throughout the book, your uniqueness and your originality is what makes you special, and it's the secret to your success. And never try to do things to make other happy, or don't limit yourself to make other people happy, because they'll never make you happy, and they're just walking their own path too. That's all.
Very good.
So
thanks, Julia.
Well, amen.
Amen.
Hey, I think we'll say thank you very much for getting up at 5:30 in the morning, your time.
Thank you. Thank you. It was worth it. It was really fun. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So don't forget, it goes onto your Facebook site, so your colleagues who are still fast asleep will be able to watch this.
I know. I think I have one friend that might have gotten up at 3 a.m. on the West Coast. I'm like, are you kidding me? But I do have some friends in Australia who I believe are on. I saw one of her names go by. But
so have to be mindful over the next couple of weeks. People will see it and they'll make comments, say, have a look later on and just add to the story. So that's great. Thank you very much. I have to appreciate you taking the time to come and share those insights. And I'm quite sure anyone who's been listening or watching the show, or even now or later, they too get to pick up the book. You mentioned it's on Kindle. It's Kindle Australia version and the Kindle American version. So the American version doesn't work on the Australian version.
Yeah, Amazon and Hay House sites have it as well. That's the download.
Yeah, we love you, Susan. Thank you for doing what you do. And that book is really good to have, just sort of when you're feeling a bit lower down and you just want inspiration or support, just have a look through, all the characters that Susan interviewed went through pretty interesting or difficult or challenging times. So it really is a treasure trove of support and inspiration. Thank you very much for joining us and listening to the show here now in the future. And thank you very much, Susan and Jeff. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We've got an interesting gentleman coming on next Thursday.
Yeah, we have a psychic artist, a sort of spiritual artist coming on next week, and he also helps activate people so that they can connect with their higher dimensional selves. So and Machicha, will be our special guest next week. So if you're free, join us then. Have a lovely week in between.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Right, there you go.
Thank you, Susan.